On July 1st, the International Criminal Court celebrated its 10th anniversary. This moment in time presents an occasion to reflect on the world's first permanent institution designed to hold individuals accountable for violations of serious international crimes. As chair of Parliamentarians for Global Action in the European Parliament, I want to highlight some of the ICC's recent successes, tell you about what the European Parliament is doing to support the ICC, and finally to share some of my thoughts on the challenges the ICC faces. At the moment, 121 states from all over the world are parties to the Rome Statute, which established the ICC. On June 24th last year, Tunisia became the 116th state party, making it only the second country in North Africa and the Middle East after Jordan to become a full member of the court. The Tunisian government's decision reflected the courageous actions of all those ordinary Tunisians who took to the streets to fight for their human rights and to build a free and just society. Over the past decade, the court has opened investigations on 7 situations and several cases against persons accused of being responsible for crimes against humanity, war crimes committed in Uganda, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in the Central African Republic and Kenya, Libya, Côte d'Ivoire, and the genocide in Darfur. The court has started 3 trials, and on March 14th this year, it handed down its first conviction in the landmark case against Congolese warlord Thomas Lubanga. Lubanga was convicted of recruiting children from the street and turning them into soldiers. On July 10th, the court will hand down the final sentence, which could be the maximum sentence of life imprisonment. This week also marks the release of 4 ICC officials who were detained by the Libyan authorities after visiting Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of the disposed Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. He's been indicted by the ICC for crimes against humanity. After the landmark referral by the UN Security Council of the investigation into possible war crimes in Libya by Muammar Gaddafi and his sons, the detainment of the 4 ICC officials marks the fine line between the ICC's role in actively promoting international justice and where it has to exercise restraint and let citizens and their governments to have justice in their own hands and take its course. Nevertheless, by receiving the international mandate to investigate the situation in Libya, a non-state party to the Rome Statute did mark a new phase in the evolution of the ICC in becoming the true defender and beacon of international justice. Sadly, the Libyan example is not very likely to become an important precedent. While allegations of state-sponsored atrocities in Syria are piling up, numerous reports of torture are published and over 100,000 clips are uploaded on YouTube. We are eyewitness as the world, but no special UN mandate for a formal ICC investigation in the situation in Syria is likely to be established soon. In the European Parliament, the ICC has gained prominence, and its role and work is generally mainstreamed in all of our work and resolutions on international crises, human rights violations, and transition periods in post-conflict situations. In November 2011, the Parliament adopted a report on the EU's support for the ICC, calling on all EU member states to fully collaborate and cooperate with the court by adopting national legislation on cooperation and to conclude framework agreements for the enforcement of the court's sentences on matters of investigation, collecting evidence, on finding and protecting and relocating witnesses, as well as arresting and extraditing persons. The Parliament also urged member states to ratify the Kampala Review Conference amendments to strengthen the universality of the Rome Statute and to ensure that there are training programs for police investigators, prosecutors, judges and army officials on the provisions and rules that establish the court. Also, the High Representative was urged to ensure that the EU exerts strong pressure, without delay, in the event of a state party inviting or hosting an individual who is the subject of an ICC arrest warrant. The fact that Omar al-Bashir is still able to travel freely to countries in Africa and to other state parties undermines the credibility of the court. The EU, as a community of values, but also as the world's largest trade bloc, has to leverage its economic power, also to ensure the promotion of international justice. This is not only the challenge the ICC is facing, we're in this together. As world politics is entering a new multipolar nature, the lacking signatures of China and India and the refusal of the United States to ratify the Rome Statute are of serious concern. The Obama administration has done little to give effect to its intent to cooperate with the ICC or even to end its hostility, as was announced by State Secretary Hillary Clinton. The ambiguity coming from the repeated support for calls for investigations by the ICC while refusing to contribute financially or to ratify the Rome Statute do not help us in standing together and to gain trust in the intentions of the United States. The court also has to catch up with new forms of human rights violations and the documentations of grave atrocities by citizen journalists. While being able to watch the Assad regime shell the city of Homs through a live stream on the internet, this brings responsibilities as well. Technologies themselves play an increasingly important role in human rights violations. Intrusive software to track, trace and monitor citizens is systematically deployed by repressive regimes and mark a new frontier in the struggle for human rights and international justice. Heartbreaking videos of victims of the most cruel forms of violence will find their way to the court and will feed into court cases. We should look at ways to make them admissible as evidence in the process of putting those responsible to justice. 2 weeks ago, Fatou Bensouda succeeded Luis Moreno Ocampo as chief prosecutor, marking the end of this important decade. While the challenges that she and her team will face are great, the relevance of international justice is unlikely to diminish. When demonstrators on the streets of Syria are chanting for Assad to be sent to The Hague, the ICC's original goal can still inspire and give hope to those facing injustices of the greatest kind. This hope should be answered with a strong commitment to the further development of the ICC. A well-functioning court will help to deter future atrocities, force states to strengthen their domestic justice systems, and provide an international last resort safety net to prevent perpetrators of the most serious crimes from going unpunished.